There's this classic problem in software development projects called scope creep. And it's not a unique problem to software development projects. A lot of different projects in a lot of different industries can face scope creep. But for a variety of reasons, software development is particularly susceptible to it. I think every software development project I've ever worked on has wrestled in some fashion with scope creep. And to that end, scope creep is a big problem for software developers and software development projects in general. Scope creep is what happens when additional features and functionality get introduced into your project and cause you to go over budget and miss your deadlines and, in general, upset everyone. Everything's a little more hectic and a little more chaotic and a little less thoughtful and planned out. The counteraction to scope creep and the way that you deal with it is with project management. Project management is a formalized methodology for managing a project and ensuring that you meet your deliverables and you meet your budget. It has become incredibly structured in recent years. The Project Management Institute is one of the premier organizations that oversees project management. And they define it as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to project activities to meet the project requirements. Now, it would be incorrect to say that because you are a developer or planning to be a developer, you don't need to know anything about project management. That's for other people in the organization. No, that's not true. Every stakeholder on a project needs to understand project management at least some level, and that's especially true for the developers. Now, project management falls into various models, and I want to talk about two very general models here inside of this video. The first is known as the Waterfall Method, and it is a very traditional old school methodology. It came out of the engineering mindset that software development was initially developed in the 60s and 70s. And with a waterfall methodology, you start with project initiation and you work down the steps, and I've just come up with a few iterative steps that you might see in a software development lifecycle, down to project completion. And it's called waterfall because each step leads to the next step, and each individual step can't be started until you have completed the previous step. And you move straight down this slope. You fall down it until you hit project completion. Now, waterfall has fallen out of favor in recent years because of a couple of reasons. It's not especially flexible, and it can cause some real headaches, particularly when scope creep comes in, the way it often does with software development. After all, it requires a lot of time and effort and, yes, money up front to invest in the planning and building. And if you get down here to the testing and it turns out that you've done something really, really wrong, well, you've lost a lot of effort when you go back and restart the entire waterfall process over again. So to that end, a much more popular methodology that's come up recently is much more iterative, and we call this Agile Methodology. You may have heard this phrase before. Agile Methodology has been developed expressly for software development projects. That was kind of its genesis and its reason. And Agile Methodology doesn't change the steps. We still have the same steps, but we work with them in a much more cyclical fashion. The idea with Agile Methodology is to be faster and, well, yes, more agile in our development processes. Let's take a few more minutes just to talk about Agile. With Agile Methodology, you work in these little cycles known as iterations. An iteration is meant to produce some sort of working code at the end of it. So every cycle, every iteration, you go through the whole process to produce some working code. And it happens quickly. And a typical iteration is 2 to 3 weeks of work. So you are very fast and very quickly churning out code, and it's code that everyone is going to be involved with and everyone is going to see. At the end of your iteration, you get all of your stakeholders involved, your users, your business analysts, project managers, developers. Everyone who's involved in the project is involved with each iteration, with each cycle. So you can quickly get feedback and ensure that you are on the right track, ensure that what you are producing is working and meeting the customer's requirements, and you can quickly change if you need to. Agile, of course, means that it's easy to change, and that's the exact idea with Agile development. At the end of a cycle, if you decide that you're on the wrong path, well, hey, you can now switch and you can move to a new path. Agile development is all about reducing the amount of upfront money, or the amount of upfront work that you put in, so that you don't feel like you are wasting a lot of time and effort when you have to change or adjust to changing parameters or changing input. At the end of the day, Agile is a whole thing. You can watch some great nuggets on it at cbtnuggets.com. Here's what you should understand about Agile project methodology. It values people over tools, and it values working software over documentation. So it's more important to have software that works, that meets your customers' needs, your customers' requirements, than it is to have a huge document of all of those requirements listed out ahead of time that you can work towards. It's more important to have people who are interacting with each other and talking to each other and understanding their shared and individual responsibilities than it is to have a bunch of different tools and software and documents that try to micromanage every aspect of the project. That is what Agile methodology is all about, and it's an important project management paradigm or model that you need to understand if you're going to be a software developer. I recommend taking some time to learn about both Waterfall and Agile project management methodologies. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.